Alright, what's going on, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? The CMJ's Gamer here. Today we're here to talk about Ghost of Tsushima and Horizon. And apparently, uh, Tsushima is taking the spotlight because it's everything Sony wants Horizon to be. It is apparently an industry plant that gets thrown around a lot, but it feels like it might be true. The series is nothing but forgettable characters, that bog standard combat built on the back of a tired Ubisoft formula without ever pushing the envelope forward. It's a serviceable RPG at best, and yet thanks to major sales, which is also almost reaching 25 million, it has spawned a big budget sequel, PSVR 2 launch title, Astrobot VIP level, Lego adaptation, rumored MMO spinoff, and even a remaster less than a decade later. That's not to mention the reportedly canceled TV series. Whoo, that's a lot. Let's unpack. First of all, I disagree that it has unforgettable characters. Aloy is very interesting. So is Silence and Varl and the War Chief and I forget the name of the guy with the King of the Sun Kingdom, and the dude that's like super into her but is also a king. I don't know. It's weird. So first of all, forgettable characters, I disagree with that. Bog standard combat, I also disagree with that because they show evolution of the weapons as you go through. Well, in the first game, it's the singular weapon, the bow, and they kind of evolve that as the game goes forward, as you're supposed to. And I completely disagree with the whole Ubisoft formula not pushing the envelope because, first of all, when I play Horizon, I don't think of Ubisoft. That thought doesn't enter my mind when I'm playing the open world first or second game. Second of all, pushing the envelope forward, they definitely did. When the sequel came out, they had heard the complaints about the only melee thing being the spear in the first game, and there wasn't really anything to that. So in the second game, they added a whole skill tree dedicated to the melee build and reworked it. And not to mention, at the time, its game-breaking graphics just on the PS4, and then even on the PS5 with the sequel. The one thing I will agree with is the remaster less than a decade, because they are pulling The Last of Us. Because whenever Sony does a remaster, everybody's like, ugh, because it's like, well, we've already played the base game, and if, in my opinion, if you own the base game and you have a remaster that comes out, you should at least get a discount for the game. Not to mention that when the game was so low, Sony jacked up the price when the remaster was fixed to come out on every console. And I think on Steam too. But with that being said, let's move on. He continues, it sells well, sure, but it has no cultural footprint. It is a vapid blockbuster, always overshadowed by its peers, especially the ones it tends to release right next to. Yet every passing year, Sony pushes Horizon harder and harder, desperate to make it stick as the flagship PlayStation series, more so than even The Last of Us and God of War. Alright, I disagree that it has no quote-unquote cultural footprint. If you're not aware, these are spoilers for Horizon, but Aloy is gay, which appeals to a whole culture if you don't know. It does get overshadowed by its peers because I don't remember what the first game released next to, but I do know the second game released right alongside Elden Ring, and I know that the remaster that's supposed to come out later this year in October is also coming out around the same time the Red Dead remake is coming out. So no matter when Sony chooses the date, it always gets pushed back. But as for trying to make it stick as a PlayStation series more so than The Last of Us or God of War, I personally, I do see Horizon as a flagship series. However, I do agree that it says Sony's trying to make it more than a flagship series, more so than The Last of Us or God of War. When I think of PlayStation exclusives, at least back in the day before they were on PC, I do consider Horizon to be up there, at least in terms of graphics. Not necessarily story or gameplay. Between the two, I would definitely take God of War over The Last of Us in terms of gameplay and story and the franchise recognition overall. So moving on, clearly Sony doesn't want prestigious icons front and center. It wants a malleable blockbuster that can easily fit different audiences, whether it's kids, VR enthusiasts, or your average gamer. That's what Horizon is designed for, but it feels painfully forced. Just like with a certain Jurassic theme park, there's only so much you can do with robot dinosaurs before things get stale. Horizon will never be the adaptable flagship Sony wants it to be, but it has an alternative sitting in the wings that fits perfectly: Ghost of Tsushima. That is true. I do think that Ghost of Tsushima, brand recognition wise, even with only one game, has pull or has more impact on Sony products than Horizon does. That is a fact. And it's funny because Ghost of Tsushima is a game made about Japan, and Sony is a Japanese company. Now the issue is that if Sony realizes this themselves, they've shot themselves in the foot, because you can obviously tell based on the new game, and this is just speculation, but with the fact that they wanted to do a female character, whether or not this is DEI or not, you look at The Last of Us, which is a female lead, and you look at Horizon, which is a female lead, and you look at Ghost of Tsushima, which was formerly a male lead and now a female lead in the sequel, and that's exactly what they did with The Last of Us Part 2. So now you have 3 flagship products that are all female leads. So we don't know if this ties into anything DEI-wise, if the team was really like, well, we just wanted to do this, or we don't have those answers yet. But it is apparent that it looks like that's what they're going for in molding Ghost of Tsushima into their flagship product. So moving on, this is during the most recent state of play, developer Sucker Punch revealed Ghost of Yotai, which is an immediate precedent. The series can go anywhere, anytime. It sets an immediate precedent where the series can go anywhere, anytime with anyone, so long as the idea of the ghost prevails. The sequel might also be in Japan, but there's no reason the eventual third game needs to be. Meanwhile, Horizon is stuck with Aloy in the same post-apocalypse, growing stale with every new entry. That is true. They don't necessarily need to go to Japan as long as the ghost lives. But I think they're going to stick with Japan because that's kind of their bread and butter at the moment. And right now, none of the big games that came out... so there was a period of time after God of War, after Spider-Man, after Horizon, and after Ghost came out, that basically we as gamers were waiting for their sequels. Sony as a company, that's like all they had, or sorry, not Sony, PlayStation was like, these are the sequels everybody is waiting for. Ghost of Tsushima was the last one we're waiting for, sequel-wise. Now that the sequel to Horizon, sequel to God of War, and Spider-Man has come out, everybody's waiting for their third games. And after that, who knows what's going to happen. So will the game go somewhere other than Japan and maybe even in a different time period? We don't know. But moving on, this next part is very interesting. He says, in fairness, Ghost of Tsushima does suffer some of the same problems that Horizon does. Aloy and Jin are painstakingly bland. I disagree with that statement on both characters. Both games take liberally from the established Ubisoft formula. Again, I also disagree with this. When I'm playing Horizon, I don't feel a Ubisoft formula. Now, when I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima, I'm feeling the Ubisoft formula in the open world, but not in the characters or in the gameplay. Not in the story and not in the gameplay. As a matter of fact, I feel as if Ghost of Tsushima does a better job at the open world aspect than Ubisoft does. So them saying that it's bland and it takes the Ubisoft formula, I think it changes it and it evolves it, and it's not bland, it's better. The difference is that there's far more potential in Ghost's future. It's already dropping Jin for a new protagonist, which could be its Ezio moment, and exploring new settings ensures that the series can stop itself from going stale. Here's this issue right here. The fact of the matter that they're comparing Ezio prematurely to this other female character in a sequel that hasn't come out yet is very bold and very, I want to say unintelligent, but that's not the right word I'm trying to go for. It's very weird to try to compare this new person to Ezio, especially considering it is a new time period and it is a new setting, but it's still in Japan. So, not really Ezio, because they haven't dropped in a completely different country in a different time period. If you know what I mean, Altair was earlier in time in a different country. Ezio was in a time further forward in a different country, in a different setting. Here, the time period is the only thing that's changed, but not the location. Also, the protagonist is female, not male, and I'm sorry, but more than likely will not last as long as Ezio has as such an icon that he is. So let's move on. Where Tsushima saw Jin protect the titular island from Mongol invaders, Yotai could be exploring the underrepresented indigenous, I'm not going to read that, people, a wholly unique setting that sheds light on the side of history most are unaware of. That is far more exciting than retreading old ground again and again. As our editor-in-chief wrote, it has solidified the series as the first major Assassin's Creed competitor after Tsushima already clearly inspired Shadows. And I'm going to disagree with that and say that there is no competition because Ubisoft simply cannot and won't match the quality, level, detail, gameplay, and story elements. They can't even match those elements with the first game, let alone a second one. And Shadows is done. When they announced that they were gonna have to delay the release of Shadows till next year, it's over. I don't think there's any coming back from that. And my thing is, I'm wondering if it's a PR move to get everybody to quote unquote forget all the controversy, and then they're going to be like, look, we fixed it. And it's like, no, we still remember what you did. Speaking of Ghost, it is malleable, influential, and expanding into the multitude world with a Chad Stahelski directed action film. Ghost of Tsushima has flourished into what Horizon has been manufactured for, and that natural earned development can be felt in its community. That is true. I think Ghost of Tsushima blew up a lot more than people were expecting. I like the game. I'm glad that people have played it. And I'm glad people enjoy it. And I am honestly glad that somebody finally showed up Ubisoft and showed them how to make a proper Japanese game story and a proper open world for once. Anything you have on, like, for example, even like Star Wars Outlaws, Ghost of Tsushima does it better. I'm sorry. I know it's a different setting, but gameplay, story-wise, it's just 10 times better. Then they move on and they say 2020 was an exciting year for the Game Awards. The nominees for the top prize were Doom, Animal Crossing, Hades, Final Fantasy, Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima. It had earned a place among the greats, and fans really went to bat for it. Yeah, in my opinion, I don't really care for Doom, don't care for Animal Crossing, don't care for Hades. Final Fantasy VII Remake shouldn't have even been up there because the game's already out. Last of Us Part 2 I didn't care for story-wise. So for me, that year, Ghost of Tsushima was definitely my game of the year. To this day, they argue that it was snubbed with the same fervor as Spider-Man 2 fans. I don't agree, but Tsushima having the same passion behind it as one of the most popular superheroes of all time goes to show how good a job Sucker Punch did at fostering a community that cares about this series and its future. And he continues and he goes, I've yet to meet a truly passionate Horizon fan. Even in the community during the year it launched, suggesting it could win GOTY was mostly met with apathy. The general sentiment was, I love it, but there are better games. There isn't that same drive as there is with Ghost fans, because it's by the number series that isn't doing anything bold, failing to leave any kind of significant mark. That's what makes Sony's continual push of it feel so artificial. Ghost of Tsushima and now Ghost of Yotai have earned the place as Sony's flagship blockbuster, with a dedicated fan base and potential that leaves its future completely open, and a mark on one of the industry's legacy titans. Horizon, on the other hand, will never shirk the reputation of a plant or the memes of launching under the shadow of far more exciting games. Hell, even the remaster is releasing on the same day as Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Oh, also with another Red Dead thing. Or with the Red Dead remake, sorry. Or the Red Dead game coming to PC. I don't think it's a remake or a remaster. So that's very interesting that, they're saying it's a plant and it'll never grow under the shadow, which is also true. I don't know if it's true that there isn't the same drive as Ghost fans. I mean, they do have numbers. There's a reason they gave it a sequel. I don't think it is purely because they want it to be. I think the numbers also speak for themselves. Then he goes, it has no room to grow beyond Aloy or carve out a meaningful legacy. Excuse me, the ship has long since sailed, even if Sony is still rushing to get on board. But Ghost is right there just waiting for their winds to change. That is true. I don't think Horizon will ever move away from Aloy. And the thing is, there is definitely... I think by the way the sequel ended, I do think they'll end up with a sequel, a third game, and I think that'll be it for Horizon. Yeah, sure, they have the Lego game adaptation, and they have the PSVR 2 game and all that, but I do think that the sequel, I do think that's going to be the end of the series. Ghost of Tsushima, we have yet to tell. God of War, I think Kratos and Atreus' story are going to wrap up in this next game. I'm trying to think. Last of Us, definitely, they're working on a sequel. But that's all that I have. As far as gaming news, this was very tame. And it's related to Ghost of Tsushima, which is, a game that I am covering. I've been excited for. But in terms of gaming news, there hasn't really been a whole lot recently. As we come to the close, or the end of the year, if you will, game-wise, what I'm playing, I'm trying to finish up Alan Wake 2, and I'm trying to finish Black Myth Wukong. But otherwise, there really isn't anything new that I'm excited for. There is an Xbox showcase coming up Thursday, so I would stick around for that. I don't know if I'll upload anything on that, probably not. But if there are any videos that come out of that I'm interested in, you'll see it on the channel here first. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.